concludes all operations of the emergency alert system. All stations may now resume regular programming.
For expanding its sphere of influence on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy.
Alright, so one of the more frightening aspects to the global agenda is the push towards technocracy and rule by algorithms. So let's take a look at a clip of former Google CEO Eric Schmidt talking about an all-knowing AI that will run society. And yes, this is a topic that freaks me out.
The important point is humans are not mathematically as precise as we wish that we are. And indeed, human intuition is often wrong. And so one of the concerns that we have, which we state in the book, is that eventually there will be knowledge systems that will govern society, which will be perfectly rational. And because they're so rational, they will not be understandable by the average human because they can't explain themselves.
Yeah, I doubt that. The engineers most certainly are going to implement bias within their code, either consciously or subconsciously. Now, let me know if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that it's hard to develop anything without some sort of inherent bias within the code. On top of that, the government commissioning this project will demand certain restraints and parameters are preserved in order to maintain power. Anyway, let's continue.
And Dr. Kissinger points out that in history, one of two things happens in that case. Either you have a revolution in the form of guns against the man, if you will, or you have a new religion. And we speculate that one of those two will occur as a result of these extremely large gains in perception from non-animate intelligences.
Ah, yes, the main reason as to why they want to go on a mass gun grab. Okay, let me back up. He says there's two possibilities. A revolution with guns, or a new religion. So yes, gun control is once again in the news, as I'm sure you've seen the tragedies that occurred over July 4th. However, there is something deeper beneath the surface. And of course, we cannot forget that scientism, their new religion, is essentially already established, the COVIDian cult. Yes, it is in full swing, and it is easily transplanted onto a different ideology rooted in this form of scientism. These individuals are primed to be broken by the state. It's a perfect storm encapsulating their pre-existing anxieties and reinforcing their delusions. The stubbornness, though, that's what's going to keep them bound for a long, long time. But again, let's continue.
So the thought experiment is that instead of Dr. Fauci, we have an all-knowing computer, which basically pronounces important things for health. And it can't explain itself.
Now, if that doesn't freak you out, then you are already deeply embedded within the cult. A Fauci-like all-knowing AI. The thought of that will send a shiver down your spine.
When Google's DeepMind announced that after just a few hours of training itself to play the game, their AlphaZero program had defeated what was then the world's most powerful chess program, Stockfish 8. Now I'm going to quote the book. The tactics AlphaZero deployed were unorthodox. It sacrificed pieces human players consider vital, including its queen. And later, a few pages later, you raise a really key question. Quote again, what if AI recommended that a commander-in-chief sacrifice a significant number of citizens or their interests in order to save, according to AI's calculation and valuation, an even greater number? This was the part of the book that electrified me. The thought that AI learns in such a different way from humans that it can contemplate tactics that any human chess player or general would regard as involving too great sacrifice, even if, from an AI point of view, those tactics would be likely to deliver ultimate victory. Tell us a bit about that, because it does get us, if not to killer robots, then at least to AI giving advice to decision makers that could involve shocking sacrifice in pursuit of ultimate victory.
So we've seen this scenario you're describing in movies a few times, where the hero is sacrificed because of the good of society. And so you can imagine looking at the way DeepMind played both Go as well as chess, that strategies that are seen as immoral might ultimately deliver victory. We also say in the book, just to take on your point, that it's possible that AI at some level will see realities that humans can't see. The fact that AI could discover moves that humans had not discovered in 2,500 years in a well-established game indicates that it may just be smarter, but it may also see things that humans will never understand. And that's, again, a speculation. So what we say in the book is that we really think society needs to put teams together to address these issues. We further say in the book, and Dr. Kissinger, who you obviously know extremely well and are a famous biographer of, believes very strongly that what we're seeing is a new epoch. He argues that there was this age called the age of faith. You can describe that for our listeners, which was replaced by the age of reason. Again, you can describe that better than I. That was the key change hundreds of years ago that allowed us to get to the point of what we think of as today of human intelligence. He believes, and rewrote in the book, that we're entering a new age because of this unintelligible or perhaps ununderstandable capability that AI will have.
And that's exactly what will happen. AI will most certainly want to sacrifice a large swath of the human population once all the data used for their overpopulation reports are entered into the algorithm. It will distinctly learn that the prevailing core tenet is overpopulation. And what's the remedy for overpopulation? Depopulation. This is not good. If you remember, stories were coming out a while ago talking about how engineers are inputting critical theory into their AI. Critical theory is all about deconstruction. They chip away at ideological foundations and intentionally create cracks, as the only way to change the system is to bring it down and rebuild from the ashes. Well, that's what they believe anyway. But for this exercise, imagine an AI built with an algorithmic notion of deconstructing society. An AI that groups people together based upon superficial characteristics and is coded to disproportionately relegate resources and punishment based upon those characteristics. This is not good. And then again, if you add in the climate ideology coded within, that overpopulation is the leading cause of chaos, and that humans themselves are a plague on the planet, well, what do you think is going to happen? That is not a good combo. Yes, of course, they will build teams around guys like Yuval Harari, which consider people to be useless and worthless, doesn't believe in the soul, and believes we are overpopulated. Again, this is not a good combo.